Like a curtain? And a spotlight? Well, I have to say, before we get going, that Larry emailed me last night and he said, I'm going to video this, and do you have anything with a pocket you can wear? And I thought, and honestly, I went through it. Women don't get pockets very much. There's something wrong. So this is from the back of the closet. This is my Hillary jacket that I've worn in lots of folly shows. So it was sort of fun to get it back out again. So anyway, I show you this picture because this shows you the building that we operate in, which is right across from the kitty corner over the parking lot. And it was a metal butler building, which I think was a nice word for a Quonset hut, back when it was acquired sometime in the 40s. There's been a theater in there since about the 1974. There was a theater called Los Altos Conservatory Theater. How many of you have never been in this building? Everybody's been there. That's fantastic. Usually there's one. So, but you can see there's a barn door, and this is the back side, and so that opens, and there is a small singing shop in the back that is used. Yeah, why don't we go on? We don't need to look at that anymore. No, I think that's good. Yeah, it became Los Altos Conservatory Theater in the 70s. So over 40 years, there's been a theater in there. How this guy, some of you may remember the name Doyne Mraz. He was a drama teacher at Foothill. He convinced Bob Rail, who was the Recreation Department director then, to let him build a theater in this building. And so 6 people built a stage, put in the lights, built the seats, bought the seats from used, which we still use. 40 years later, they've been recovered. But it's been quite an amazing success story. And that theater had to be closed down. I was on the board at the end of its run, and they were deeply in debt, and we just felt we couldn't keep up. The fundraising didn't match up with the debt raising, with the debt acquiring. You talk.
Sorry. Do you have education on here?
No, yeah, I have education. Yeah.
So, Los Altos Stage produces 5 plays each year, season, and serving about 8,000 patrons through those 5 plays. The plays range from musicals to comedies to dramas. We try to do a mix of shows each year across the 5. Typically, a show runs for about a month. Musicals a little bit longer. Musicals we tend to run for about 5 weeks, and straight plays we tend to run for about 4 weeks with them. The average attendance for musicals is somewhere around 80%. On average, successful musicals will do about 90-95% capacity of the theater. The theater itself is a 100-seat theater, for those who don't know. Straight plays vary. Very successful straight plays can get up into the mid-80s, but typically straight plays do about 70% capacity right now on average. We typically keep our shows kind of post-World War II. We don't do really historical shows or Shakespearean shows. We like to focus mostly on the kind of American canon of plays and playwrights, and try as much as possible to mix those ones that have a more kind of representing kind of a historical setting within the American theater canon, kind of iconic works, and then balance those off with newer works that are meant to be more challenging thematically, but also meant to try to diversify our audience, both in terms of ethnic profile as well as age.
And this is up from Into the Woods, our December show last year.
Yeah, that did 95%. So.
People know it, they like it.
Yep. So this is just on the ticket range. Our ticket range from $20 for a student ticket to $38 for a full price adult ticket. Our pricing varies. All of the seats in the house, since every seat basically has the same view, costs the same amount. The only variation in price is on the day of the week. So we price Wednesdays cheaper at $34, Sundays also cheaper on the matinee, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday are all at the $38 price.
So we've taken over the management of Los Altos Youth Theater, which is still a city program that they ran for, they've been around for more like 60 years, a really long time. And so that means we're doing 8 productions a year. Right. And Gary makes it all sound like, I mean, it's like, oh, we get all these, because when you're in Los Altos Youth Theater, you enroll with the fee through the city rec department, and you're in the show. I mean, there's still auditions and all that process. And we just closed the youth theater version of the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, which was just fantastic. And I complimented the education director, Jillian Cummings, and she said, yeah, it's really too bad more people didn't see it, which is something we hear a lot. And it was just an amazing, to me, it was perfect. And there were 3 adult actors, which we also sometimes do in the summer production, which I think makes a huge difference to how the kids rise up and perform. So
yeah, is there any more on Los Altos Youth? So for those of you who don't know or don't know the whole history of Los Altos Youth Theater has been a program of the city in one shape or another for a long time. It was one of the first kind of programs of the Park and Rec, providing drama support for students. Up through 1995, when Bus Barn Stage Company took over from Los Altos Conservatory Theater, Los Altos Youth Theater performed in its own sites. It performed in the multi-use room. It performed, Jillian told me, up at Foothill College.
Oh, really?
Yeah, used to do their shows up there. But they didn't perform in the Bus Barn Theater. They were 2 totally separate entities. After 1995, the use agreement with the city had in it Los Altos Youth Theater being able to use the space concurrently with the Bus Barn Stage Company, kind of on a calculation of Bus Barn Stage would be in there 2/3 of the year, and Los Altos Youth would be in it for 1/3 of the year. So we shared the resources of the building, shared the resources of the equipment, shared kind of the overhead of the building based on a 1/3, 2/3 type of deal. But there was no real relationship between the organizations. Even though they shared the space, they didn't collaborate on any program. And 2 non-collaborators sharing a space, you can kind of stumble over each other. And so the relationship wasn't great between the 2 organizations. Right. When I came on in...
7 years ago or so?
7 years ago. I have a youth theater background, worked in youth theater in New York, and kind of rose up through youth theater as well. And my colleague at the time, Dan Wilson, also came out of a strong youth theater program. And we really had an interest in seeing how we could partner with the organization. You had a youth theater from a city program that didn't necessarily have the production know-how or the production resources, and you had a not-for-profit theater company that didn't have an education program. So we thought, partnering up would be the best thing to do. So we started doing summer musicals together as co-productions. We did about two of those where we brought our resources together, brought professional adult actors to be both mentors and artist teachers for the youth to kind of take on a few of the adult roles. We did Wizard of Oz and
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yeah. And those went well. But because of the kind of internal politics around in Los Altos Youth Theater, they didn't necessarily want to go any farther than those initial partnerships. So we, as an organization, really had a strong interest in pursuing education programs. So we decided, well, we'll fill in around Los Altos Youth Theater. We'll start doing classes and camps and things that Los Altos Youth Theater wasn't doing. And we started building up an education program around that, which obviously expanded the reach of our organization into communities, but also positioned us for if there was any change in the leadership of Los Altos Youth Theater, that we would have an education director on, we would have the kind of systems in place. And it so happens then...
Just so happens
in last fall?
Mm-hmm.
Last fall, the director of that program retired, and the city's Park and Rec department was open to us coming on and managing the program. And so last fall, we took over the management of the program, and now we're both producing the summer camps as well as doing the Los Altos Youth Theater shows. So
So they do 3. They do what? They'll do one in October
Right.
and March, and then a summer, usually a bigger production musical.
Right. Which it definitely it expanded our audience. The Los Altos youth, depending on the show, roughly averages around 2,000 additional audience members. So from the 8,000 a year up to about 10,000 a year in audience members. It allows us obviously to build relationships with the parents of the Los Altos youth students to try to bring them into the other shows. And it's had a spin-off that a number of the youth that kind of moved through Los Altos Youth Theater are now taking on roles, both apprenticeships and internships with the organization, but also roles in the adult shows themselves where there's appropriate places. I think so far we've had about 4 Los Altos Youth Theater participants who then have transitioned over to the other shows.
Gary, do you coordinate it all with the high school drama program, Foothill drama program?
With Foothill Drama, we have a relationship, a partnership with, and a number of students from Foothill come down and do the shows and also are involved in kind of production elements. The high school, we've had a little bit tougher time kind of cracking the high school, just their over capacity.
I've communicated with Nancy Moran, who's the drama teacher there, and I actually mentor girls at the high school, and my student who just graduated was in the drama program, and so I saw all the high school productions they did. They do 3 a year too that are quite well done, and but they are like intensely focused on their own material and their own.
Yeah.
But she's always on our list of someone we want to have a better connection to.
And is there any more on summer camp?
Yes.
Later on.
There's.
Wait, let's go on with that.
Let's go on. Let's stop looking at this picture.
This is Dead Man's Cell Phone. It's not
Dead Man's Cell Phone. Fun.
Great
Great show. Great title.
So like we said, the theater is considered a 99-seat theater, even though it kind of goes to 100 and above if we kind of move seats. But that meant something in the past that doesn't necessarily mean the same thing now. It used to be that the Actors Equity had different kind of contracts and different availabilities for actors to perform in 99-seat theaters. Recently, Equity has kind of removed that as an incentive. It was an incentive for actors to be able to kind of hone their craft in smaller spaces. So you didn't pay the full amount for equity actors, but they've removed that. So it doesn't really matter anymore.
So as you're probably aware, we're going to lose all of that free parking. It's going to be torn up. We have a rehearsal room we have used at Hillview all these years. And the youth theater has a costume room that they're losing at Hillview, which is full of mostly cool costumes. I mean, some of them aren't so cool, but.
Vicki, where are all those costumes going?
To storage or to being.
Lots of different places.
Yeah.
My garage.
No, they're not. Gary lives in San Bruno. That is a bit of it.
Jillian and the other staff members have been working. The storage that Los Altos Youth Theater has over in Room 9 in Hillview has been there for decades and decades, so you can imagine what they've acquired over those years. So for the past 6 months, they've been kind of culling it, figuring out what's the appropriate stuff to keep. Our education director has a relationship with Los Gatos High School, who was interested in taking and storing and having us be able to use their storage. We recently lost our storage in San Jose, and we now have a storage over in Mountain View, but it's only a 10 by 30 by kind of 10 space, so there's only a certain amount we can keep at there. So supposedly by the end of next week or a little bit after, we're supposed to be out of Room 9 completely. So we're kind of in the final stage of trying to figure out what we're just going to ultimately get rid of. Unfortunately, theater is a very material-intensive art form, both in sets and costumes. Yeah. And storage is always a problem.
Right. Unfortunately, it's actually usually cheaper to buy something and throw away the thing you used for 2 years ago. It's just really tough.
It's the same with sets. You can. I mean, people look at the beautiful sets and they're like, you keep, but it is more expensive, like prohibitively more expensive to keep and store sets than to dismantle and get rid of.
Gary.
So TheaterWorks has a lot of storage. Thought about partnering with them maybe they would like to see some of your stuff to hold on with.
We have a relationship with TheaterWorks through both, primarily through their props department, and who a number of them do scenic design for us, and we're able to trade stuff with them. They're the same type of thing. They're usually getting rid of stuff more than they're keeping stuff. I mean, they have that place over in across Dumbarton, I think, or the bridge over in across the Salt
Fremont.
Flats.
It's over by Fremont somewhere.
Yeah, they're across there.
Okay.
But also the same with. No, their storage is across the bay.
Yeah, you're right.
That's where their warehouse and stuff is.
I think their offices might be.
But they're in the same position that we are on a larger scale. The number of things that they're creating and acquiring for their shows, and the ability to store it really is a problem. In the past, we've tried to form partnerships with other organizations to kind of do a shared kind of resource, but the cost of having somebody be able to manage it and maintain it and be able to dole it out ultimately kind of failed in that partnership. It was just too expensive you have to hire somebody specifically to manage that project.
I just joined this Facebook group called Bay Area Theater Folk, and every day there's like a message from somebody. We need 6 chairs. Anybody got 6 chairs? We need 2 actors to do a reading tomorrow night. Can you cut any? It's this constant. I need a projector.
Right.
There's a lot. We borrow a lot of stuff from each other.
Yeah, we have relationships with City Lights Theater, Parrot Theater, Palo Alto Players, Theater Works, Foothill, West Valley College, and everybody's. We have relationships and where people lend us stuff on a regular basis. We lend out our stuff at no cost to regular places. And we typically don't have relationships with people, even small organizations, who turn around and try to make money off of renting their stuff to other people. We feel it's an open community. If we have it, we'll share it if we're not using it. And we form relationships with other organizations that kind of feel the same way.
Okay, let's go on. Yes, this is what I want to be sure to talk about. So we're doing all that. There are 4 people that work for us. Gary works full-time. We have half-time managing director who's new, has been with us about 5-6 months, Ed Sengstack. And we have 1/4 time education director, or is she half-time? Half-time, Jillian Cummings. And we have a production assistant for hourly for Gary, and we have a box office manager. That's 5. Her name's Susan Books. If you bought tickets from us, then you maybe have encountered Susan in our little box office. So that is an enormous amount of effort for this few people to put on, and we are totally realizing now that this is not sustainable.
And we hire about 100 contract workers between the shows. So the shows kind of average probably about 60 actors over the course of a year, and then each show itself has roughly about 5 production personnel, designers across set, lights, costumes, stage manager, properties.
This is a picture from Urinetown, which was a great success a couple of years ago. If you've never seen it, the premise. It's in the future. Water has become such a commodity that it's rationed, and a private company has bought up all the public restrooms, and you have to pay to pee. And if you're poor, then you stand in line and do all sorts of weird things too.
Yep.
Just a little satire. So I like to talk about the philosophy a little bit, and I thought, this is a wordy sentence. Is this a community that embraces and demands that theaters use their spaces to push boundaries and test limits, that uses the black box to gather community and dream the culture forward? I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff, but it's really challenging. We have a lot of people who say things to us like, I just want to be entertained. Don't make me think. I'm tired, it's Friday, what have you got? What do you got? It'll make me laugh, that I'll understand the jokes. So we're constantly trying to balance that, pull people, every year. In fact, someone at an event we did a couple of weeks ago said, well, I'm worried about the season. Like, you're asking too much of me as an audience member to really grab a hold of these shows you're doing. So, anyway.
I mean, it's interesting. For every person who says, I just want to be entertained, I don't want to think, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah.
And so to go too far one way or the other, it's the same amount of people who say, I am not into fluff, why would I waste my time to see that, as say that I'm entertained. So the best that we can do is try to find a middle ground and balance. Not necessarily with the shows themselves, because if you find a middle ground with the show, you're basically doing mediocre shows.
You're doing The Odd Couple five times a year.
Yeah, which then you'll have people who don't like that. But to try to balance in a season and try to give a variety of things that can attract a variety of audiences and hope that the subscribers are with you for the journey and will kind of ride out what they perceive as the highs and lows over the season to kind of have a diversity of types of shows, diversity of types of themes that are being presented.
Is that block of 600 pretty stable? People have been with you a long time?
It varies, and subscribers historically are an older part of the audience base. So depending on how much a season tries to push on attracting a wider range of ages, subscribers can react to that. And so we've definitely seen it fluctuate with shows that are more challenging.
And this is our 25th year, which is fantastic and wonderful, but all of us who started subscribing 25 years ago are 25 years older, and some of those people have died and gotten ill, or gotten beyond the point of being able to, can't go out at night. Age happens, and so it's a constant challenge to refill the
It's
pool.
the same challenge that the community overall has with the varying kind of the sectors of its own community and participation and volunteerism, varying from the older population in the community to the mid-range population whose kids are kind of high school or just newly college in their participation. It isn't unique that subscription has been a challenge across mid-size and small theaters because of the way that people are kind of consuming and buying things and the last-minute nature of purchasing. Now we've seen our overall audience increase, but subscribers either stay flat or go down a little bit as a percentage. I mean, definitely as a percentage of audience, subscribers have dropped. And then given year to year, the real number of subscribers can vary based on what types of shows they perceive. If we were a musical theater organization, there's many reasons we're not, we would have a different kind of subscriber base than we have now.
Yes, go on. Oh, you can't quite see this. So I always like to talk a little bit about the fact that, drama has been with us since we lived in caves. Storytelling is was the way human beings communicated to each other, and it hasn't really changed. It's got lots more bells and whistles now, and this is from a holiday show we did a couple of years ago called the
1940s
Radio Hour, where Gary played Pops, the old man, the crusty old man in the corner. But this was a very successful show for us. And so that stories prod us awake and confound our expectations. And sometimes we like that, and sometimes we're not so. Sometimes we're a little skittish about that. We can go on. But it's an ancient art form, what's one of the things that's really fun for me is that I see most of our shows like 3 times. I go to under rehearsal, and I go to the dress rehearsal, and then I see a performance. Sometimes I see more than one. Sometimes I house manage. It's different every time, it's a different experience. It's the same material, but and Gary, who acts in some of my shows, I'm sure can talk a little bit about that. There's nothing that replaces being in a room with people doing art.
Yeah, definitely. It completely. Ultimately, the theater is an art form that is created for the audience, and the ultimate experience that we're going for is the audience in a room interacting with the environment that's being created and the performers that are acting in that environment. But being involved in the process is a wholly kind of different experience. And a number of years ago, like 4 years ago, we started a program with the board to have them adopt a show. And rather than just come as audience members on opening night or whatever, to be able to come to a number of different production meetings and rehearsals over the evolution of the process. Because seeing seeing a space kind of develop from an empty space or from just words on a page ultimately to the final production not only gives you a whole different sense for it, but your ability to kind of be dismissive or just react as a general audience member of like, oh, I liked or didn't like, is completely altered in that experience as you kind of see the evolution of the performers, the work, what they've struggled with. It's really, I think, helped the board members have a better understanding in the conversations that we have. That came out of a friend of mine that I grew up with is a theater critic up in Toronto, and he had a local theater company who started a program for critics to actually come in behind the scene. And the theater company knew very well what they were doing, and it took her a while afterwards to figure out what was doing. The ability of a person to behave critically of a show, just kind of take it apart once they are involved in the kind of nuts and bolts and tapes of the show is drastically changed from it. So basically the theater company was trying to mitigate negative reactions to their shows by involving those critics up front, and it works.
It's kind of awe-inspiring. All our actors are not in the actors union. We can't afford to have actors union actors, so all of them have day jobs, and they live all over. San Martin and Santa Rosa, and they work all day at the job that they earn money for, and then they drive down and work with us every night for 2 months.
Right. I mean, the local acting community is very broad in the experiences that they bring to the theater. But it is a very active community. I mean, you have these people, like I said, working for Facebook and Google or engineering or health care and doing 4 or 5 shows a year in theater companies that run up and down the peninsula for it. The number of theaters locally that provide opportunities for actors' equity is just a handful. The number of theaters that provide opportunities for non-equity actors in the broader community is hundreds of theaters around. Even within our vicinity, we have probably 10 theaters operating within a 20-mile radius of where we are now.
Move on. So what's going on right now? This is sort of how we roll all the time. We have our first new show of this year, Admissions. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Pardon.
Oh, okay. Is opening on September 6th. Gary is the director, so he works for us all day, and then he works for us on Admissions every night with his cast. So that show's opening, and the set's being built and loaded in right now. The next show, the Christmas show, Miracle on 34th Street, the radio play, they'll be starting rehearsals very soon. And so we almost always have one show on stage, either performing or rehearsing on stage, and we have another show rehearsing in a Hillview room, and we're losing that room, and then the city has at least given us space in Grant Park, so it's going to be a bit more of a jaunt, but so that's all happening. Are you holding any auditions right now?
Yeah, we're getting ready to hold auditions for the first and second shows are cast and staffed, and we're getting ready to hold auditions for the third and fourth shows,
right,
which is Oslo, about the Oslo Peace Accords, and Sunday in the Park with George, the musical. And
we are doing a fall fundraiser that I'm feverishly working on at the moment, and are the summer camps all done?
Yeah, we just closed the summer camps just a little over a week ago. So from June through the end of July, we hosted 7 different summer camps. They ranged from 4 and 5-year-olds in kind of week-long dramatic play camps up to high school students doing kind of acting for camera, musical theater, kind of intensive workshops, to a 3-week camp for kind of 8 to 18-year-olds where they put on Frozen Junior in 3 weeks. So
start to finish.
A little over 150 kids kind of came through the theater over those 2 months. It was
it's very challenging.
Doing summer camps adds a whole another level of kind of chaos to an organization, but a lot of energy.
Yeah. This picture is from the show 1984, which we did last year, very successfully and sadly relevant to today's politics.
Yeah, that was fun.
So we have to do all these things. that's why we're here. We love talking to people about Roy Lave one day a long time ago called me up and said, Vicki, we have to, the theater's going to close down and we don't want to lose it. We have to, let's make a new theater and we'll get a new plan and it'll be better than the old one and we won't get into debt, which we never have. But, and wouldn't you like to, run that? What? And I really was not sure. My background is not in theater, it's in art, but it was a really great decision, and I've had a wonderful time. And so it's working on all this stuff is very challenging, but it's also very fulfilling. We can go on. So we're trying to build deep connections between artists and audience. This is Tom Goff in the front, who played the part of George in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which, of course, talk about a challenging show. Oh, I don't want to see people fight. But they also kiss. That's not their spouse. It was a great production. And that's all I have to say about that. We're trying to build connections, and we're trying to... pretty much everybody's seen their parents fight at some point or another, I would say, and had a response to that, and there we go. I always like this picture. So our budget's $480,000, which is quite puny compared to, I think TheaterWorks is about $9 million. Ticket revenue covers about half. Where does the rest come from? All of you. Us applying for grants, applying to Rotary's foundation, and all those. Where else do we get money from?
Yeah, Rotary, the Packard Foundation gives us support. Los Altos Community Coalition gives us support. Lacey provides us some support. The fundraiser, Qualies, which just ended its 25-year run. Provided roughly about, on any given year, about 10% of the income comes from the fundraisers to it. That's definitely our kind of biggest part of the fundraising that we're trying to figure out.
Guess what? Musicals. Why do you think musicals cost more? Anyone? What?
Sets.
Music. They have to have a band. You need a band, and this was the last time we did this is the first radio play show we did, which was very successful. And so they cost more because you have to have the music and a band and a place for the band, and you sometimes have to rent pianos and stuff.
Yeah, the fixed cost of the shows are relatively the same from straight to musicals. Outside of the variations are on rights. Rights for musicals can range up to about $8,000 a show, where straight plays are roughly about $1,500 a show. Not per show, but per production itself. And musicians, while we pay the actors a set stipend for the course of a show, in order to get quality musicians, we have to pay a kind of standard per performance rate. So the cost of musicians for a show can run close to $10,000 over the course of a musical for that. So that between that and the rights, that's where you kind of see the difference. It also tends to have musicals, for the most part, have a larger casts as well. That takes up a little bit of it. Sets, costumes, relatively the same.
Gary's in this picture. You have to see if you can tell which one is him. Theater provides a place for live shared community experience that doesn't come from staring at your screen. You have to be there and you have to be engaged. You can see these actors are completely engaged in what they are doing. What was the name of this show? Circle Mirror Transformation.
Yeah, this was about a group of people in a community center that were taking an evening kind of dramatic play theater class. And so you kind of understand their lives and understand the evolution of their relationships as they kind of move through these dramatic play exercises. For some people that was a little too much, but it was a beautiful kind of play. Very kind of the playwright who wrote this play all her plays are very interesting. As far as action taking place, not a whole lot of action takes place. She's really kind of about character development, but kind of those movies where very little happens and they're very quiet, and you don't really. For some people, the impact of them happens later when they kind of are able to sit and reflect on what happened. But for some people, that kind of quiet, nothing being kind of thrown at them is kind of difficult for them to attach to, I think.
Even during Folly shows, when the lights are on, you can, like the first 2 rows, you can see the people in the audience. And sometimes they're dozing, which is disconcerting when you're on stage going, oh my God, how am I? Or they're looking at their program and like, when is this going to be over?
Yeah, I mean, all shows are different. This show is really kind of about quietly understanding kind of these individual people. Not about some big issue or some big conflict, but just kind of understanding.
There was kissing.
There was kissing. But
Okay, so I just thrown it up. It's really hard. I'm having a little bit of a withdrawal, having done Follies for 25 years, because this is the. It's not going to come back. Well, unless it could, if there's, where are the 50-year-olds who want to do something like this? I love this flamingo costume that my friend and I made. So yeah, we're working on a new thing. So go ahead, we can go on. And the new fundraiser, so if any of you would like to, fundraising, what everyone's favorite thing to do is, we're looking for some volunteers. This was last year's,
oops, wrong way.
our first drag show we ever did.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. So over the 25 years, Follies contributed about $600,000 to the theater's operations, which I'm very proud of. And this was a song we did a few years ago about airplane noise in Los Altos. Remember airplane noises? Everyone was up in arms about that. Now it's cell nodes. It's really hard not to be writing something about cell nodes, but go ahead.
You just do that for home.
Yeah, talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, I mean, what we talked about before.
Yeah.
Especially now, with us taking on the youth theater, it's even more important that we build connections to communities to raise our contributed income, both through kind of fundraisers and event-based fundraising, but also through individual donations and local family foundations. The increase in our budget from prior to taking over the youth theater, our budget was kind of hovering in the mid 350s, and with taking over the youth theater, it's hovering now close to $500,000, and all of that is within earned income and ticket sales and participation in that increase. So right now, the organization is kind of heavily burdened on really fluctuating income through earned income that comes from show to show or from project to project, and the need to build relationships within the education foundation community and also within local supporters who really want to help us be able to sustain and build a vibrant kind of youth theater and education program is important. We've just taken it over, so we haven't necessarily built the foundation of the relationships with the funding community to do that. But it's going to be essential to maintain what we're doing, both on education and artistically, with the staff resources that we currently have. Like Vicki said, it just is not sustainable, and we do have to build back up to get to that 50-50 proposition where ticket sales and fees are representing about 50% of our income, and support from foundations and corporations and individuals and fundraisers represents that other 50, which is a healthy model within the theater community. All arts organizations, based on their type of art that they're doing, have a kind of standard calculation. Museums are typically about 30% earned and about 70% contributed. The theaters typically run, TheaterWorks, ACT, Berkeley Rep, all of the theaters run about 50-50. But right now we're pushing close to a 70-30. Right now we're probably at 65-35. But as we increase the type of things that we're doing, we've basically been expanding kind of on the backs of the existing resources, which from what you know in your own business, if you keep expanding on the same resources, eventually those resources kind of break.
let's sort of go fast through the finish. Yeah, these are just, the theater provides many ways to express ideas and values. This is a song from the Follies a few years ago. There's controversy in our town. It was about something, I forget. We had fun channeling our parents.
That's a spelling bee too. Right?
Yeah. And we do special events with the History Museum and the library. In fact, Marlene and I and Elizabeth Ward from the museum have been meeting, and we're working on a program for the spring called the Night of Ideas. You'll hear more about that some other time. And this is a fun picture. Arts and culture make Los Altos a more vibrant place to live and play. We totally believe that, and we wish more people would, fall in line and say, yeah. And it contributes to the local economy. A lot of people who want to come here and see a show want to have dinner first and drive over or walk over. It's quite possible. It's not exactly a huge jaunt from downtown to the theater, but we have a facility in its current condition that is not enticing, particularly to people going, you want me to go? And people walk inside and go, oh, this is quite nice. Where's the bathroom? Around the corner and over there, and it's cold in there, so just be quick.
And it's true, especially as our audience has grown. While the largest portion of our audience is still local and from Los Altos Hills, the majority of our audience comes from outside. So it's around 40% of the audience comes from locally, from Los Altos Hills, just close in Mountain View. But the rest of them come from all over and come into Los Altos. So they are looking for things to do before. Unfortunately, they're looking for things to do after, too.
Right, the actors really struggle to find a place to go have a drink at 10 o'clock at night.
They are coming and they're asking us where to go and what places to visit before they come over to the shows. Our proximity to downtown is important. Being even closer within the downtown would even
we're going to get to that.
To us, and also to the downtown.
Yeah. So I do this slideshow for the lead class every year, and I always, they want to know what you need. We need to keep the space we're in viable. I'm worried that when the construction trucks roll by, that if they shake the building hard enough, something might fall off the door, the roof. I did suggest to Chris Jordan that we could put a cell tower on our roof if they put a new roof on. So we need all these things. We don't have a lobby. The restrooms are used mainly by the kids, the soccer kids, and gosh, they're messy. We need rehearsal space, and we want, of course, a state-of-the-art facility. We talk all the time about a new theater and a theater in the downtown, and I know this group is aware of the challenges of that. We can give you a few more minutes on that. Let's just wrap these up, and let's see what else I had here. Oh, you can volunteer. We do all these.
Volunteer. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Both within our board and our support, we have ushers, house management, front of us, box office. We have plenty of opportunities, and also opportunities for kind of stipend people to work with us. We work with new people as well as established people across kind of all design elements and helping us to build sets and other things.
Yeah, here's I thought this was a fun shot of one of our youth programs this summer where you can see the shapes and sizes of the kids, and they seem to be pretty intensely paying attention to what's being taught to them.
Yeah, this is our third year doing summer camps. Yeah. And they've grown every year. And even with a lot of other competition, a lot of people operating the systems, the need and the interest in camps locally here in Los Altos is still significant. We found out an interesting thing this summer, though, about how to plan it. As a side note, our education director afterwards said, I think I know how to plan them out now. So what you do is you do the really young camps early, because those are the parents who plan out like in February, they sign up for the kids. And you do the teenage camps at the end of the summer, because those are the people whose parents thought they could keep them home for the summer, but realized halfway through they don't want them. So they sign up for the camps later on, which is what worked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mentioned admissions is opening. This is a show we picked before the scandal broke about admissions, but it's sort of about that, and sort of about people who work in college admissions trying to diversify their student population versus than their child getting rejected.
Yeah, Admissions and Entry Play, it just came out, it just closed at Lincoln Center in New York in the summer of 2018. And we're the first theater really west of the Mississippi to do the show since it showed in New York. And the show's looking at the question of what happens when your progressive values and ideals clash with your own individual self-interest, and how do you balance those two things out, specifically around inclusion, and those issues of inclusion have an impact or perceived impact directly on your family. Do you hold up your ideals, or do you let go of your ideals in order to further yours or your children's self-interest?
Gary's in that picture. You find him? He's Pa.
Oh, yeah.
He's Pa Jode in The Grapes of Wrath, which was a great show.
Yeah, that was fun. We had water on stage.
Yeah, we did. I love this one. So we have a fundraiser. We picked a date, the 27th of October. It's going to be in 2 private homes that happen to be across the street from each other. So we'll have, because we're doing Sunday in the Park with George in April, we're going to have Sunday in the Street with the Stage Company in October, and it's going to be fun and food and performing and all sorts of stuff that we're just getting worked out. So stay tuned. And then there'll be a Arts Razzle Dazzle Youth Showcase, which we've done for like 4 years in May, which was a fun. We have kids from like 4th through my age. Actually, John Sylvester's older than me. So that'll be in next May. Yeah, so this is our 25th year season. If you're not getting inundated with postcards from us, we'd be happy to inundate you. So I know Nancy wanted us to talk a little bit about a theater downtown. We're all for it. Please build us one. We have an 11-person board. We struggle to, raise the money we need to sustain our current organization. So I guess it's going to be a transition year. I'm going to retire from the board in June. And we've got 4 new board members, which is exciting, but we really need the community to support this theater. And then transfer all that. And to have a theater downtown, I think the only thing that's viable is to use city land. I've talked with Chris Jordan, and he's enthusiastic about that idea. There have been a lot of plans proposed. We could have it joint with the library. We could have it joint with a parking structure. Fine. Yeah, let's just do it. But theaters are expensive. It's probably one of the most expensive. I mean, we need stuff. And, so it's not, and I recall, getting the money to build the History Museum seemed like it went quite well. But getting the money to maintain the History Museum, less well. People like to buy a brick or something, but then you say, will you pay our janitor? Oh, I don't know. Didn't I already pay last year? So, I think we are standing by. We cannot be the driving force. We can be the management team. We would love to do that.
Well, I was just going to mention, it was part of the downtown vision, one or more of the scenarios. It was one of the most interesting, and the idea was it would bring a lot of vibrancy.
Right.
It would also allow the city to do something else with the space here at the Civic Center.
Right.
So,
yeah.
It potentially has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
And then I was just wondering, would we also be able to multi-purpose with it? So
A little bit.
A little bit. So we've always said having indoor-outdoor theater, or being able to show movies, small, specific to just movies that would draw in teens, give our kids something to do.
Right.
But
It's very challenging. Right. We try to use our space over here on dark nights, but there are few. Performances run for about 5 to 6 weeks. Rehearsals run for 6 weeks before that. So it's King Lear has always wanted to have a combination movie theater and live theater. You can do it, but you'd probably...
it depends on the design and structure.
It would be bigger.
How you do that as for events. But, primarily also it's not only about building a theater for the community to do it, but building a theater for the kids to do it. Now that we've taken over Los Altos Youth Theater, about being able to provide them with an educational experience in a space that can provide that, to be able to build those programs in it. As we increase that program and the education programs are going to be a larger and larger part of what we do, and I would even venture to say an equal part of what we do in the space. So it's not just about building a space so that Los Altos residents can come attend, but building a space that can be a kind of community gathering point for the kids and the arts in the local community.
And-
Well, that was my question. How, if at some point in the future you do have a new space, how would you have to change your operating model and your client base, for lack of a better term, to be successful in that larger venue?
I don't know that we would have to necessarily change a tremendous amount in the mix of things that we're doing. The cost of presenting in them, increasing the production values, expanding up to include equity actors, those type of things, just in lifting up the general perceived quality of the productions will have to be placed in there. But the mix of youth theater and adult theater in the space, I still think is a viable mix. As far as being able to multi-use, it is the question, because the install of shows, especially with 8 shows where you have 4-week runs and a minimum of 3-week kind of load-ins into the space, you can do the math and between performance and do it. So you'd have to be able to kind of partition part of the space to be able to close off a proscenium so that things can happen in front of the proscenium, either being able to drop a screen.
Like this theater doesn't have, sometimes we have a curtain.
Black box, you can't, you're in there and you're just in there.
But so you need more stuff, and you need to educate the public that, you could show a movie if you had a wall that moved out and closed so the set's
Right.
behind and the screen comes down.
Or to do community presentations
Yeah.
or corporate presentations or other kind of things for it. But to be able to do a show on top of another show is not.
Okay, I'm watching the clock.
One quick last question. How big is your footprint now in terms of square footage, and how big would be the ideal space if you had a new space?
It's a 10,000 footprint right now, square foot footprint. I can't remember what King Lear had put in it, but it's not necessarily, I don't think, my personal belief is I don't think the community or the organization needs to be substantially bigger in size. Right now we're at 100 seats to go up to about 175 seats in the community. Keep it still within a kind of intimate kind of jewel box sensibility of the community, and not necessarily try to look at a Mountain View Center for the Performing Arts type of thing in the middle of Los Altos. Still keep it kind of small, local connection to it. That I think can be sustained. The increase can be sustained. And I think that would be kind of a next logical step.
We'd be happy to stay and talk afterwards, and we thank you for your attention, and we hope to see you all over at the theater.
Thanks very much for the presentation.